That Sunday morning there was an unusual stillness in my house. The sunlight crept gently through the curtains, casting a glow on the laptop I had just opened, almost as if it too was trying to show me what I had deliberately ignored for months. On the screen was our credit card statement, something I rarely paid attention to. Because my husband, Ethan, always said, "I've got it covered, don't worry." But that day, a notification popped up from the bank, just as I was about to look up a new pancake recipe for my son. $2,900 at Cartier, $1,700 at Burberry. Dinner at Elora's garden on my birthday, with a note. 2 guests, garden view. The taste of coffee suddenly turned bitter in my mouth. This year on my birthday, Ethan had said he was at a weekend conference in Dallas. The kids and I had made do with a last-minute store-bought cake, blowing out candles over a video call. I had even felt touched when he called right on time. Now I knew he was in Dallas all right, just not in any conference room. "What are you looking at?" Ethan's voice rang out behind me. He strolled into the kitchen with that same casual air, smiling like he hadn't hidden anything from me in our 16 years of marriage. I snapped the laptop shut quickly. "Oh, just a few online orders," I replied, matching his calm tone. Inside, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like every vein might burst through my skin. "My name is Amelia Thompson. I'm 41 years old, living in Nashville. Before getting married, I was a creative director at a major media firm in Atlanta. I met Ethan at a sustainable investing seminar and thought I'd found the man I'd walk through life with. He was 38 then. Successful, charming, and had the kind of eyes that made you feel heard. I gave up a rising career to build our home, raise our 2 kids, and support Ethan as he expanded his finance career. I was the woman behind every company event, every family trip, the one who remembered every anniversary. Even when my husband didn't. And now I was staring at the trail he left behind in his secret spending. "Hey Amelia, not sure if I sent this to the right person." A text from Mia, my college friend, popped up, with a photo attached. I opened the photo. It was from a charity gala Ethan had sponsored. He was wearing a deep blue suit, holding hands with a petite blonde in a red dress, her head tilted sweetly onto his shoulder. She was young, at least 15 years younger than me. I had never heard of the event. Ethan had never mentioned it. My mom, my daughter, little Sophie, came down the stairs, her hair a mess from sleep. "Is Dad not eating dinner with us anymore because he has a new girlfriend?" I nearly dropped my coffee cup. "Why would you ask that?" I turned around, trying to mask the shock on my face. "Lily said before her parents got divorced, her dad was gone a lot too, just like ours." She said it softly with no blame. Just a quiet observation. I didn't respond right away. I just pulled her into my arms, brushing her hair with my fingers, while inside I felt like something had shifted for good. Some things I had known all along, but once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. I can't remember how I managed to smile and make conversation the rest of that day. I took the kids to the park, stopped by the grocery store for dinner, and cooked Ethan's favorite roasted chicken, all while my mind kept spinning with one question. Who was she? And when did it start? That night, after the kids had fallen asleep, I lay still in bed, facing away from Ethan. He was beside me, scrolling through his phone like always. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, waiting for the familiar rhythm of his breathing. Part of me wanted to believe I was wrong, but the other part knew. A wife's instinct is rarely mistaken. At 1:47 a.m., I quietly got up, walked over to his nightstand and picked up the phone he always kept within reach, like an extension of himself. He'd changed the password a few times this year, but I'd watched him enter it. 6 digits. Our son Ryan's birthday. Soft click. The screen lit up. A new message sat at the top. "Good night, Em. Miss your arms around me last night." I opened the messaging app. The name displayed. Chloe. I didn't need to guess. The messages stretched like love letters from a man who wasn't married. Selfies from hotel rooms, heart emojis, audio clips where she called him E. Each one felt like a knife to the chest. Chloe, 27, loose brown curls, sun-kissed skin, total Malibu girl vibe. and clearly not shy about her body in those skin-tight dresses. I opened Instagram, searched the handle she had mentioned in a message, at @ChloeBryn_fit, a yoga instructor with nearly 80,000 followers. Photos by the pool, in gyms, at a resort in Arizona. The same trip Ethan said was a corporate leadership retreat. I grabbed my earbuds and played the most recent voice message, Ethan's voice, soft and affectionate. "Good night, baby. Wish I could hold you one more night." I set the phone down, walked silently into the bathroom and locked the door. The lights came on and I stared at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes sunken like I'd been crying for a week. I slid down to the cold tile floor, clutching the phone, my whole body shaking with fury. I had given up everything. For family, for our kids, for the man now sleeping soundly outside, clueless that his carefully constructed mask was starting to crack. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, to keep from crying. I couldn't fall apart now. I unlocked the phone again and began snapping screenshots. Each message, each photo, each transaction in the email app, every piece of evidence was sent to a private email Ethan didn't know existed. It was time to remember who I was. Before Ethan, I had been a woman who led. Someone who pitched million-dollar campaigns. Someone who bought her first car with her own bonus check. I used to believe I could build a happy home with enough love and effort, but I was wrong about one thing. You can't build joy by burying yourself. I got up, blotted the tears from my skin and faced the mirror like someone searching for herself. To remember the face of a woman who had just been betrayed by her husband and who would never let it happen again. I took action the very next day, when Ethan left the house early claiming he had to meet an investment partner in Knoxville. He walked out in his usual charcoal suit, kissed me on the cheek like always, completely unaware that I had read all the love messages he sent to someone else the night before. That afternoon, I met with an old friend, Amanda, who now worked in corporate security. I told her plainly, I need someone to follow my husband. I need the truth, not the polished version he performs for me every day. Amanda understood immediately. I know a guy, quiet, doesn't ask questions, clean work. 2 days later, I met privately with a private investigator named Russell at a quiet cafe in Brentwood. I gave him Ethan's daily schedule along with screenshots of texts with Chloe I had saved. I need to know when they meet, where and how much Ethan is spending on her, I said firmly. In 2 weeks, I'll have everything you need. And just like he promised, on day 10, an email came from a secure address, codename Black Swan, investigation report. I opened the attachment while sitting in my car, parked near the elementary school soccer field where Ryan was practicing. The first few photos nearly took my breath away. Ethan and Chloe leaving a luxury condo building in Midtown holding hands. He carried her yoga bag and opened the car door like a perfect gentleman. There was even a copy of the lease, in Ethan Thompson's name, with rent listed at nearly $4,900 a month. Russell had also attached a spending summary from the secondary credit card Ethan had opened and given Chloe access to. Total spending in the past 5 months, $118,000. Money spent on spa treatments, jewelry, hotels, airfare, and even a specialized yoga retreat package in Sedona. I clicked on the receipt for $17,400 at Harry Winston, dated June 5th. I let out a bitter laugh. That day was our wedding anniversary, 16 years to the day. I sat there, hands clenched on the steering wheel, eyes watching the kids running across the field. I asked myself, what had I missed? How many lies were wrapped in excuses like business trip, last-minute meeting, or client needs a one-on-one? And how many times had I told myself, Ethan's a good man, just under a lot of pressure at work? I forwarded the full report to a backup email account I had created, carefully deleting all traces from my phone and the household tablets. Each piece of evidence I numbered, labeled and organized: photos, messages, statements, contracts, videos. I bought an external hard drive and hid it in the back drawer of the kitchen cabinet, the one only the kids and I ever opened. That night, when Ethan came home, he brought red roses and a box of pastries from my favorite bakery. You seemed a little off the last few days, he said. Thought I'd surprise my wife. I took the flowers and smiled faintly. Thanks. I'm guessing you're trying to make up for something. He laughed, thinking I was joking. I used to think betrayal was like a knife in the back. But no. It's more like someone removing one brick at a time from the foundation you spent your youth building, until one misstep, and everything collapses. I wasn't going to let it fall apart that foolishly. I started collecting, quietly, like the crisis communications expert I once was. Before Ethan could plan a clean exit, I would block every escape route. One weekday morning, I called Mr. Lawrence Green, the attorney who had worked with our family for over a decade. On paper, I said I needed advice on updating our will and estate planning, but the real reason ran much deeper. We met at his office in Green Hills. Mr. Lawrence, now in his 60s, had helped us draft our home purchase agreements and set up education funds for our kids. He looked at me through his silver-framed glasses, full of concern. "Amelia, are you all right? You look different." I gave a faint smile. "Probably lost a few pounds. Haven't been eating well these past months." After some routine discussions about assets, I set my teacup down and looked him straight in the eye. If a husband uses marital assets to spend on another woman, what happens in Tennessee? Does it affect the division of assets in a divorce? Mr. Lawrence furrowed his brow. "Are you talking about Ethan?" I didn't answer directly, just asking hypothetically. He cleared his throat, paused, then explained. "Tennessee is an equitable distribution state. It doesn't mean a 50-50 split. Adultery doesn't automatically impact the asset division, but if there's clear proof he used shared finances for an affair, that's considered dissipation of marital assets. A judge could take that into account." I nodded slowly, mentally adding another card to my deck. And if the husband secretly consulted a divorce attorney to ask how to hide assets? Mr. Lawrence raised an eyebrow. "You found something?" I stayed silent for a beat, then pulled out my phone and opened the email I had recovered from Ethan's iPad. The one he never password protected because it's just for the kids' Zoom classes. There it was. An email from 3 months earlier with the subject line, "Divorce options, confidentiality requested." The recipient, a divorce law firm in Chattanooga. I handed the phone to Mr. Lawrence. He sighed. "That makes things clear." The meeting ended with his firm commitment. "If you need representation, just say the word. I'll stand with you." The next day, I regained my composure and called Chloe, Ethan's current mistress. Her voice on the phone was young and overly confident. "I don't know who you are, and I'm not getting involved in any drama." I replied, calmly, "I'm the legal wife of Ethan Thompson, and I have all the photos, texts, receipts, even the lease agreement for the condo you're living in under my husband's name. If you don't want to be named in the lawsuit, I suggest we meet." A brief silence. "What do you want?" "A conversation. The cafe across from your yoga studio tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. I hung up before she could refuse. When we met the next day, Chloe wore a sports jacket, a baseball cap, and oversized sunglasses. She looked at me with a mix of confusion and suspicion. "I didn't know he was married," she said, her voice quieter. I slid a thin folder across the table. "The issue isn't whether you knew. It's that once you did, you kept going. These are records showing Ethan used funds from our joint accounts to spend on you. If I wanted, I could demand you repay that, legally." Her face turned pale. I continued, "But I'm not here to destroy you. I just want to ask, what did Ethan promise you?" Chloe stared at me for a few seconds, then exhaled. "He said he was separated, that you were just his past, the kids were grown, and he was just waiting for the finances to be settled before ending it peacefully." "You're not the first, you know." Her eyes widened. "That evening I dug out an old folder from the garage, a place where I used to store work materials. Inside I found the name of a woman who once worked as a receptionist at Ethan's old company. Someone he was rumored to be close to 6 years ago. I found her on Facebook, Rebecca Myers, now living in Clarksville. I sent a short message. "I'm the wife of Ethan Thompson. I believe we may have shared a similar experience. If you're open to talking, I'd like to listen." she replied in just 15 minutes. I've been waiting for this call for a long time. I called her immediately after reading the message. Rebecca picked up after 3 rings. Thank you for reaching out, she began, direct and sincere. I never thought I'd have the chance to speak with you. We agreed to meet that afternoon at a small cafe in Clarksville. She was already there when I arrived, wearing a white blouse, her hair tied neatly. There was no trace of the woman who once walked away from Ethan's life, except in her eyes, where the hurt had settled into something quiet and guarded. I wasn't exactly deceived, Rebecca began. Because when we met, he said he was separated, that his wife was cold, too focused on the kids and didn't care about him anymore. I believed him. I gave her space to speak, letting her continue. He promised he'd leave everything behind to be with me, said he had put down a deposit on a house in Chattanooga, even took me ring shopping. Then one day he disappeared, no text, no explanation. She opened her wallet and pulled out an old screenshot from her previous phone. Ethan hugging her on a beach. Below it, the caption read, "Won't make you wait much longer. We deserve a new beginning." Rebecca sighed. When I found out he was still living with his wife, still posting family photos on Facebook, I felt like a joke. I acknowledged her with a slight tilt of my head. You're not alone. We looked at each other, and for a brief moment no words were needed. We both understood. The real pain wasn't just betrayal. It was realizing we had been props in the same recycled story told by a professional liar. I'll testify if you need me, Rebecca said firmly, not out of bitterness but because you and your children deserve the truth. I left the cafe that afternoon with 2 things, a willing witness, and final confirmation that Ethan had been living a double life for years. I started moving money into a separate account at the end of October. Not much, just a few $100s at a time, disguised as routine expenses, back-to-school shopping, tutoring fees, car maintenance. Ethan didn't notice a thing. In his eyes, I was still the quietly devoted wife, managing our household budget without question. After 8 weeks, I had diverted nearly $32,000 from our joint accounts. Half I placed in a personal savings account at the local bank. The other half I opened a trust account under our children's names. I used an alternate identity, something I learned back when I worked crisis communications for state-level political figures. I also knew that to truly bring Ethan down, I needed a trump card from where he least expected it. Inside his own company. And the first person who came to mind was Elaine Cartwright, Ethan's longtime executive assistant, who had worked with him for nearly a decade at Brindle & Co., the investment firm. Elaine was in her 60s, with silver-brown hair, dressed simply but professionally. Ethan used to call her a walking fax machine when he was irritable. I always believed she was the only person in that office who truly knew how untrustworthy he could be. I invited Elaine for coffee on a Friday afternoon. We chose a small cafe in Franklin, somewhere no one would recognize us. She arrived on time, sat down, and looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "I guess you know now," she sighed, handing me a thin folder. "You're not the first, and I doubt you'd be the last if no one finally teaches him a lesson." I took it. Inside were copies of emails between Ethan and the internal accounting department. They referenced the setup of a shadow investment fund named Northlight Holdings, opened at a bank in the Cayman Islands. He signed it under the company's legal name, but the funds came from the reserve account, his post-tax bonuses. Ethan figured no one would notice because that fiscal period hadn't been audited yet, Elaine said, lifting her eyes to meet mine. But I noticed. "Whose name did he use to move the money?" I asked. "Ryan." I nearly dropped my glass. "My son?" "Yes. He listed him as a potential beneficiary, just legal enough to pass a surface audit, but it wouldn't hold up under real scrutiny." My hands trembled. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had dragged our 14-year-old into his dirty financial schemes. "I have full copies on a flash drive," Elaine said, pulling a small, leather-wrapped USB from her purse. "Everything. Emails, transfer logs, transactions, even photos of Ethan with other women from his so-called investment conferences over the last 3 years. I reached for it, steadying my breath. "Why are you helping me? I used to think you were the only thing keeping Ethan tethered to any kind of decency. And I've watched him choke that out of your marriage for years. You deserve everything back, including the truth." I gripped her hand. You realize? You just became the most important part of my plan? She let out a soft laugh. You haven't seen the rest. Elaine also gave me a folder containing Ethan's personal travel itinerary. Trips never reported to HR but still recorded because he used the company card to book them. From Palm Springs to Aspen, from Cabo San Lucas to Jackson Hole. Always booked for 2 guests. That night I returned home in complete silence, like I was carrying a ticking time bomb in my purse. Ethan was on the sofa watching basketball. Where were you? It's late, he asked, not even looking away from the screen. I removed my scarf and hung it neatly. Just caught up with an old friend. He didn't think twice. Still, the man convinced his wife, suspected nothing, that his lies were smooth enough to cover every crack. I spent 3 days preparing for that evening, every detail mapped out like a crisis comms campaign. Except the goal wasn't to save a brand, it was to expose a hypocrite in front of the very people who once believed in him blindly. I called my mother-in-law Lorraine and Ethan's sister Cassandra, sounding cheerful. Next week is our 16th wedding anniversary. Ethan's been swamped lately, so I want to plan a little dinner surprise. I'd love for you and Cass to join us. Lorraine lit up. Oh my goodness, you finally got him to take a night off. I'll wear the lavender dress I wore at your wedding. I booked a table at Maison Bronte, the French restaurant Ethan once went to with Chloe. I had a copy of their receipt, including $200 wine glasses and a salt-crusted lamb dish. This time, I chose the exact same private room on the 2nd floor and pre-ordered the same meal. That evening, I wore the red gown I had kept from my creative director days, off-shoulder V-neck, elegant. Around my neck sparkled the diamond necklace Ethan once gifted Chloe, worth nearly $18,000. It now belonged to me, thanks to an anonymous package Chloe sent 2 weeks earlier, with a note that read, I don't want these. I'm sure you'll know when to use them. I stepped out of the dressing room just as Ethan fumbled with his tie. Whoa, what are you wearing? He asked, frowning. You look totally different. I smiled. Well, tonight's special, isn't it? You forgot. He hesitated. Oh, I thought I had a dinner with my boss, I gently but firmly cut in. I already invited your mom and Cass. I've paid for the private room. It's not exactly cancelable. He paused, then reluctantly nodded. All right, let's go. At Maison Bronte, when we walked into the room, his mom and Cass were already seated, along with 2 close family friends, Uncle Thomas and Aunt Helen. Everyone was cheerful, complimenting my look and asking Ethan why he hadn't visited home lately. Dinner started normally. I poured wine for each guest, smiling politely like the picture-perfect wife. But when dessert arrived, I pulled a small black box from my purse and placed it gently in front of Ethan. Happy 16th anniversary, I said, light as air. Ethan opened the lid. Inside was a credit card, cut in half. It was the secondary card he had secretly opened for Chloe, which I had revoked from our account. He went pale. What's going on? His mother asked, worried. I opened my wallet and pulled out a black folder. White label on top, misuse of marital assets. I handed out mini packets to each person at the table, each carefully curated. Photos of Ethan with Chloe at resorts, credit card statements, hotel bills, emails from the lawyer's office asking how to protect assets during divorce. This is everything I've gathered over the past 6 months, I said calmly. I thought everyone here deserves to know who Ethan really is. Lorraine trembled as she flipped through. Cassandra looked stunned. Ethan stood abruptly, voice shaking. What the hell are you doing? You can sit and let them finish reading. Or get up and run like you always do, your choice. His mother sobbed as she stared at a photo of Ethan and Chloe in a hot tub in Santa Fe. I added, I've moved half our assets from the joint account into a personal one. Fully legal, entirely within my rights. Divorce papers will be delivered to your office at exactly 9 a.m. tomorrow. And Ethan, this necklace on my neck? You bought it for your mistress last month. I just figured tonight was the perfect time to wear it. Ethan staggered slightly, words caught in his throat. I'm not doing this to ruin you, Ethan, I said, meeting his eyes. I'm doing this to end what you've been quietly destroying for years, and I won't be the one left in pieces. The divorce was finalized faster than anyone expected. He had nothing left to stand on. Once my attorney submitted everything to court, from financial records, shady transactions, audio clips of his talks with Chloe, to Elaine's USB drive, Ethan had little choice but to sign. His family stayed completely silent. His father, Ronald Thompson, founder of the family real estate firm, said only one thing the last time he saw Ethan. "From now on, we have nothing more to say to each other." The following week, he announced his early retirement and transferred full control of the company to his nephew on his sister's side instead of letting Ethan take over as originally planned. Ethan wasn't invited to the announcement. He only found out from a local newspaper. Cassandra, his sister, also cut ties. I received an email from her a few weeks later. The first line held just 3 words. "I'm so sorry." She wrote that at first she had tried to believe Ethan was innocent, because every brother makes mistakes. But after reading all the documents I had sent and watching her mother cry herself to sleep every night from the shame, Cassandra realized Ethan hadn't just betrayed me, he had betrayed everyone who once believed in him. At the end of the message, Cassandra invited me to her daughter's birthday, little Lila, 8 years old, with a note that read, "Lila always says, Miss Emilia is the strongest mom she knows. I hope you'll come, not as my former sister-in-law, but as the role model she looks up to." And as for Chloe, 3 weeks after that night, a package with no sender's name was delivered to my house. Inside were all the things Ethan had once bought for her. A brand new pair of Chanel heels, a crocodile leather handbag worth nearly $9,000, and the Cartier watch I'd once seen in a photo. Everything was neatly wrapped. At the bottom of the box was a handwritten note. Just one line. "These yours, good luck." I folded the note and placed it in the bottom drawer of my home office, not to keep it but as proof that even those who were once deceived by the same man could wake up. I used part of the divorce settlement to invest in a nonprofit media project led by an old friend, Rachel, a former colleague from Atlanta. She was building a platform to support women entrepreneurs across the southern states. "I need someone who knows crisis management and brand strategy," Rachel said when she called, "and I need someone who understands what it means to rise from wreckage." I didn't hesitate. Another portion of the money was placed into 2 trust funds for Ryan and Sophie, completely out of Ethan's reach. The trusts were in my name, managed by attorney Lawrence, and clearly stated, for education, healthcare, or startup ventures once they each turned 21. Ethan now lives in a small, dimly lit rental apartment downtown, without the Tesla he used to proudly show clients. By court order, he's allowed to see the kids every other week. But when he visits, Ryan speaks only when necessary, and Sophie avoids eye contact, refusing every gift he brings. I never forced the kids to be close to their father, but I never encouraged hatred either. I only said, "It's okay to be angry, but you need to learn how to grow beyond the pain, not live in it." That morning, as I stood inside my new office, a red brick building on the 3rd floor in Nashville, watching the city through a wide window, Rachel walked in and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Amelia, do you know what you look like right now?" I smiled softly. "Like someone who just escaped a fire and is rebuilding a house?" Rachel shook her head, like the last person to leave the fire and the only one who took the map. One evening in late February after dinner, Sophie, who was 10 at the time, tiptoed into my room holding a pink box she always used to store the most important things. "I have something to say," she whispered. I closed my laptop and looked at her. "What is it, sweetheart?" She opened the box and took out an old photo of Ethan with the kids at Disneyland. She held it for a second, then placed it back inside. "I don't hate Dad anymore," Sophie said softly. "But I still don't want to go out with him alone." I gently stroked her hair, asking nothing more. "Why not?" I asked gently. She looked up, her eyes dry but thoughtful like an adult. "Because Dad doesn't know how to see anyone but himself. But you're different. You see us. And you don't let him treat you like you don't matter. I'm proud of you for that." I froze. Sometimes the maturity of a child takes your breath away. I didn't say a word. I just held her close for a long, long time. Ethan still has visitation rights every other week. He always arrives on time bearing gifts and food from the kids' favorite restaurants, but they've learned something, that gifts can't replace time. And apologies can't replace presence. Brian remains polite, respectful, but never reaches out first. As for Sophie, the little girl who once asked, "Where's Daddy?" now simply replies, "I'm fine," whenever Ethan texts. I'm not happy about that, but I don't correct it. Some relationships have to heal from the roots, and Ethan, it seems, never learned how to start over from a humble place. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a text from an unknown number. I know I have no right, but I still want to say, I'm sorry. I've gone back to college. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. Chloe. I read it and set the phone down. In April, Rachel and I officially launched our new media platform, At Her North, at a Women's Entrepreneurs Summit in Nashville. I stepped onto the stage in a cream-colored jumpsuit, hair pulled back high and diamond stud earrings sparkling under the lights. The same pair Ethan once bought for Chloe, now back with me. What used to symbolize betrayal now represented the power to choose a new direction. A reporter asked, "You were once a prominent figure in media. After all these years away for family, how does it feel to return?" "I'm not coming back," I replied. "I'm moving forward. Only this time, I'm headed the right way." My story isn't just about escaping a marriage built on lies. It's a declaration that women can rise from devastation with their own strength. I had once been the good wife, the devoted mother, the woman who stepped back for family. And then I was forced to choose again, between silence and truth, between breaking and becoming. I chose myself, and in that choice, I found not just freedom but pride, something to pass on to my children. What do you think of Amelia's decision? Should she forgive, or was she right to stand up for herself and her kids? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories to come.